Hey everybody, welcome to Live Coding with Jesse. I'm Jesse, and today we're going to work with React. I wasn't exactly sure what we'd be working on, so I left the title nice and vague and just said React coding. So we're probably going to finish up, or at least try to do a little bit more with that form that we were working with yesterday. I thought I might be able to get it finished before the stream, but I wasn't really able to do that much. So I had kind of a long meeting this morning, and but it was a good meeting though. It started out with food, so we had breakfast, which was really nice, and then we had like our normal meeting afterwards, which took longer than normal. But I still wanted to get a stream in. So today's stream might be a little bit shorter than normal. We'll see how it goes. So we may only end up doing one Pomodoro session of code. So for everyone who's new, this live stream is just me doing my everyday work. I'm a full-time front-end developer. I work for a small university. So this is not rehearsed at all. I will make mistakes. I think maybe one time I did a stream where everything worked out well. So, but I'll make mistakes. We'll work through them. I'll answer your questions and I'll try to narrate what I'm doing as we go along. I break things up with Pomodoro sessions, so we'll do 25 minutes of just mostly coding, and I won't really look at the live chat too much, and then I'll take a 5-minute break and I'll answer your questions in the chat. And then at the end of the stream, if there are any questions remaining, I'll take as much time as I need to get through all the other questions. So like I said, for today, maybe we'll just do one Pomodoro session and the rest will be questions. So I did get into work really early, like way earlier than normal this morning, so I'm going to be leaving earlier than normal. So I don't want to take too long with the stream. And all right, so let's get started. I'm going to check the chat first before we start our timer and do some code. So hey, a few people saying hi. How's it going? Thanks for joining us. Oh, Anna is through the emoji that she's put on there thinks it's funny that I put the description as. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to work on today, but I'm pretty sure it will have something to do with ReactJS. Yeah, I mean that's the best I could come up with for the description, because I really didn't know how far I would get with what I was working on. And Noob says, I have a static website in React which has client-side rendered, I would like to know how I can convert it to server-side rendered website. If it were me personally, I would just start up, I would build a React project with Next.js, and I would literally just copy and paste the components over. Then you're going to get server-side rendering already built in. The only thing that might be weird is like if you wanted to then use the routing from Next.js, you might have to change some things. That's what I would do. There may be an easier way to do that, but I don't know about it, offhand. So if I had a little bit more time, I personally would probably research it first. But if I needed to get it server-side rendered as fast as possible, I would go the Next.js route, because I already know how to do that. Let's see. We have a hi from Guadalajara, Mexico. Awesome. Welcome. We have, hi Jesse, really like your videos because you're showing normal. Expert web developer, would you recommend me to be a React developer in 2019? Thanks. Oh yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of jobs in React. It's a lot of fun to develop with. So if you're interested in React and you think you'll enjoy working with it, then for sure, go for it. I see React jobs being posted like constantly. I was just at React Rally last week, and there were a lot of companies there that were looking for React developers. Even like big companies were there, like Apple was there, American Express was there, and then some smaller companies like Formidable Labs, It's slipping my mind. There was this other company that had this really cool like website editor product that was all built with React, and I can't. It starts with a W. Man, it's slipping my mind. But anyway, you know, I believe every single like company that had a booth at React Rally was hiring and wanted React developers specifically. So in any case, I think it's definitely a good way to go. I mean, React is still young, right? It's only been out for, I mean, what, like 4 years or something like that? And, you know, during the first year, everybody thought it was crazy anyway. So, I mean, it's still growing. Let's see. We have hi from India. All right, cool. I'm going to get started. So I've spent about 6 minutes on the intro stuff. So let's get started. If anybody wants to follow along with the code, there's a link to the GitHub repo in the description, and we are on the Salesforce branch. So make sure you switch it up from master branch to Salesforce. Otherwise, the code's going to look different for what we're working on. Today, we'll be working on the component called inquiry.js. Let me switch my screen so you can see, and I'm going to make my font a lot bigger. And so you can see here in the components folder, we're on inquiry. And I have updated the GitHub repo with the latest code. I will say this, the latest code has some errors in it, but I just wanted to make sure it was all there on GitHub, so I pushed it anyway. But let me catch you up on what I've done, and then explain what we're gonna do, and we'll do some code. Let me start my Pomodoro timer. So basically, what I've added is dialogue component. This is from Material UI. So we need to bring in a dialogue, and this will be basically like a little modal that pops up when you submit the form. So I'm still not sure if I want to go with a modal or just some type of small loading indicator. The reason that I thought of going with the modal is because, well, 2 reasons. Number one, I already had the code for that ready from another project, so it was easy to copy and paste it. But also, the number 2 reason is I may want to give the user more information, and I think a modal would easily let me do that. Maybe prompt them to even do more. So I'm not exactly sure how I want to do that yet. So for now, that's what's going to be in there. What would happen is the modal would open. It would say that it's still sending the data, and then when we get confirmation that the data has been sent successfully, then it'll switch over and say success or something like that, and then prompt the user to either like just close the modal or potentially, I don't know, take the next step, give us some more info. I'm not exactly sure yet. It's going to be somewhat up to our admissions department here, because they're the ones that need that data and are going to be acting on that. Okay. Oh, Oshan asked for the dev site link. Yeah, I wonder. There we go. Let's start up ngrok. So ngrok will allow you all to see what I'm working on your local machines. So if you click that link or copy and paste that link, you should be able to see the site. And the stuff that we're doing will show up on the home page, so you shouldn't have to navigate anywhere. Of course, you can if you want to, and check out other pages on the site. And let me pull it over on the screen too, and that way for those of you who can't be at a computer right now looking at it, you'll still be able to see what we're working on. So I have it all on the other screen right now. And I'm just going to move it over here and I'll show you what we have. So here's what we have. The form that we're working on is right here. It looks really bad right now, so we're going to work on the look of it a little bit. But these are the fields that we'll have. So these are not likely to change. We'll just have these 4 fields: first name, last name, email, and student type. And you could pick undergrad, graduate, and online. And then we have a submit button that right now, I don't know what's up with that. So we'll have to fix the styling on that. Also, like I don't know why this is all the way over here. It's something to do with the container, I guess. So we definitely have some styling work that needs to be done. And that might actually be a good thing to do. Like, let's just style this a little bit better. Because even if I can't get it to work, if I have it styled correctly, by the time I have to present this, it'll be fine, right? Because if I'm presenting it, nobody's going to actually be clicking anything, right? I'm just going to be scrolling down telling everybody what it does. So it makes more sense to just kind of make it look good now, and then we can make it work after. So let's work on that. So we have, let me just show you how we're doing styling. So we have this object. It's actually basically like CSS, but you see there are some differences. So we go with camel case instead of hyphenated terms here. So, you know, font size is capital S, right? No hyphen. And then anything that's a string needs to go in quotes. Numbers can just be numbers, right? But it's in the format of a JavaScript object. Okay, so that's what we'll be using mostly for our styles here. So first things first, let's get that container into shape so our stuff's not like super spread out. So I like the container size that we already have here. Right, so we have some space on the sides. So let's just try to match that for now, and then we can go from there and see how it looks. Yeah, I'm gonna turn on my fan here and just keep it on low. If it's too noisy, let me know. But I don't know if you can see, like, I'm super hot and I feel like my forehead is just super shiny because I'm starting to sweat. So apologies for that. It probably looks gross, but it's just got really hot in my office. Okay. If you're just coming in, you're wondering why I'm not looking at your question in the chat, I will look at your question as soon as this Pomodoro timer is up, so in about 20 minutes. So just hang in there a little bit, and I will be sure to look at your comment and answer any questions that you might have. So we have this grid container, and let's see where that ends. Yeah, you know what? Actually, let's see where this is. We need to go back to our index page, right? Because that's where all the other containers are. So this inquiry.js is its own component, and we're just putting it into the index page here, right here under inquiry. And on the index page, I think what we have is that our main grid is not what's giving us our padding on the sides. It's these grid items. Each have their own padding. So I'm going to verify that in our CSS object, which, let's move that down. So we're currently moving all of our CSS to the bottom of our components. That makes it a bit easier to figure out what a component does when you first open it. So we're going to look at those grid, those content. We have a content container. Actually, our content container should be regulating. Let's double check what class we have on here. Yeah, our grid container does have the class of content container, and our inquiry is within that container. So we're going to have to dig a little bit deeper to figure out why this inquiry component is not fitting in there. So let's see. First off, let's see what kind of styles we have here. And we grabbed some of these styles. Let's get rid of, because they were from when we used a different component as our base, and then we just kind of edited it. So those styles were from a different component. Yeah, so we don't have any styles in here right now that I think would really mess anything up. I don't even think we're using this form control. Let's see if it's on the page. I guess we are. Nah. Okay, we are using a form control somewhere. Okay. So let's go back to this, and let's just inspect it, see what's going on. I will make this bigger so y'all can see, and let's see what section. So we're dealing with this section here. Okay, so we'll just do a quick comparison here. So we have this grid container, and it's saying we have a width of 100%. Let's compare it to this grid container, which also has a width of 100%. But then it has a max width of 70. Interesting. Grid item. You know what I think is going on? Let's look back at our index component. I thought, let's close this off. Interesting. Okay, so I thought that this grid container was not closed, but evidently it is closed, and it closes here. Okay, that makes more sense now. Let's let's put another grid container here. I'm not sure if this is the best way to handle this, but I'm going to try it first. The thing I'm thinking is maybe we could just extend it and put this inquiry inside our existing grid container, and we could probably put this in there as well. Or potentially we could add the styles for the grid container on the container that's in our other component, which I wouldn't like to do because that would make it a bit less versatile. And then the other thing I'm worried about is we're going to have a grid container within a grid container. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but we'll find out. So for now, it looks like it's okay. It is within that. Yeah, so it's staying within there. In terms of the layout, let's see what it looks like. So we have this outer container, and then we have an inner container, and then we have another one. So I guess it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of like an extra unnecessary div, which is not a huge deal. So I think we'll go with it for now. So that gives us a little bit of padding. Hey, look, our submit button now actually says submit. That's cool. I don't know what the deal was before, but I'll probably end up styling that differently, maybe to look more like this button does. But for now, we get the idea that there's a submit button. It actually might be nice if y'all let me know what you think about this. So when the screen's small, this doesn't look too bad, but when it starts to get big, this is just a huge gap between like all these fields. So I'm thinking we need to do something about that. So either we could go with the fields being like all on one line on a large screen and then starting to stack as the screens get smaller, or we could set a fixed max width, so that we get the width we like and it'll never go bigger than that. Let's try both. Let's see both. So let me know what you all think in the chat, and then I'm just going to try both right here so you can see them, and I'll be able to see them and see what I like. So first thing, and it'll be really easy, is let's just add in everywhere that we have this SM equals 6. We're going to switch that up. And we'll leave it for the small screens are 6, but now we're going to say MD for medium size equals, so we actually have 5 of these, I think, because if we count the submit button, it's 5. So we could go with, this is going to be weird. Yeah, let's go with 3. Let's have it take up 3 columns for now. That is going to leave that 5th one kind of like on the end there, like down below. But you can't really divide 12 by 5 evenly. So we'll just try this first. Okay, so now when there's a large screen, it does go across. We have a submit button below. I don't know. I'm not sure that I really love that either. I'm gonna look at it just for a second, let you all have a chance to look at it. Okay. I think it potentially would look a lot better if we had it like inside a section like this that had a dark background. I'm not going to try it out right now though. We could try it out maybe in a minute, because then I'd have to change the font color and everything. So we're just going to imagine it for right now. Eventually I do want to do it though, because I'd like to put these same fields in the footer, and obviously I'd need to change the font color for that. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to try is we'll switch it back to how it was, and then we'll just have a max width. I got to the end of my playlist. Need to switch this up. Okay, we're good now. Can't possibly code without Spotify on, right? Okay. So we'll just undo all that, and now let's put try to see if we already had styles on here, but I guess we don't. Do we have styles on anything? Yeah, we do. Just trying to copy and paste and avoid typing as much as possible. So on our grid container, let's add this, and we'll just say container. And then let's go down here and add a class for container. And we'll say max width. Let's give it a max width of 300 pixels. And that'll actually work no matter what, even on mobile, because as far as I know, the narrowest mobile device still has 320 pixels. So this should be good. I've seen a lot of stuff down here. What is happening? Oops, forgot a comma. So remember, this is the same syntax as a JavaScript object, because in fact it is a JavaScript object, so we do need to have these commas in here. So that should work. Yep, that works now. Oh. Alright, so first problem with that is that we have overlapping fields. Alright, so it's not going to work being that small. So let's go in here and see. Remember, we're just trying to get a feel for what it looks like. So what I'm going to do now is just change things in DevTools just so that we can see it without the overlapping fields. So here's the container that we put that max width on. Let's bump it up to 600 pixels. Yeah, 600 looks way better. And let's also give this flex wraps flex. Let's go with flex. Align items. No, that's not what I want. Justify content. There we go. So since we're using Flexbox, we can say justify content center on this containing div, and this will move everything to the middle. I just kind of wanted to see what it would look like in the middle. I don't like that this is on the side here. All right, let me do a little bit with this just to see what it'll look like. Oops, here we go. So let's move this down. All right, so our container, we're gonna bump to 600 pixels. And then within that, let's go justify content. CIFY content. Oops, forgot that comma again. So we have justify content, we're gonna say center. And then we're also we're gonna go up here and find that submit. We're going to find that submit button, and we're going to switch this so that it takes up the full amount of space. And then I don't really want that to be centered either. So, oh, let me wait a second on that. So I want to see what it looks like first. So let's go back here to this containing div. So verify that now it is taking up the full width, right? Which is what we wanted. And we could say, let's say align self and see what we can get here. Whoops, is that the wrong one? I wonder why it's doing that. Oh, I know why. So here's the problem. Is there an equivalent in Flexbox to align self, but let me justify. I guess I can go with this div, and let's just say justify content, you know, end. That's weird. Yeah, we should be able to. We should be able to do this. Alright, what am I doing wrong? Alright, about 2 more minutes till I go to the chat and answer questions. So, I'm messing something up here. Content in. John Hansen saying, put the submit button in its own flex div. What's the thing? I thought it already was. Guess not. Flex go, flex faces. Flex. Alright. Alright, let's try that. This will be the last thing that we do. Oops. Div. Styles. Let's go with display flex. Oops. Flex, and then, oops, we're going to say justify content, and what's up with this? What's my problem here? What's going on? Oops. Oops. Shouldn't have equals there. Alright, let's see what that did. Nothing. I'm gonna refresh to make sure we're clearing anything that might still be in here. Alright. Oh, Michael Crew saying use flex end. Yeah, maybe that's my problem. Yeah, flex end. It was that the whole time. Alright, cool. And then now I've lost my formatting for this. For whatever reason, this is not working now. Alright. I mainly just wanted to see if this submit button would look better over here. Now that I see it, I'm not so sure. But my timer is up, so I'm going to put on this 5-minute timer just to see if maybe we want to do another Pomodoro session. But for now, I'm thinking maybe not. We'll see how it goes. In any case, I do still want your opinion on what to do with this form in terms of style. So the only constraints basically are we need those fields and a submit button. And it has to be like material design looking. Okay, so other than that, you know, we do whatever we want with it. So if you have ideas, please let me know. Kirtik says React versus Node versus Angular. So I would say Node shouldn't be included in there because Node can and usually is used with both React and Angular. So Node is backend. React versus Angular. I mean, it's really a matter of preference. They're not exactly the same, like comparable, you know, one-to-one. They do some different things, but I mean, the only thing that I'll say in terms of difference is React is growing at a faster rate than Angular in terms of like usage, right? But Angular is still widely used. So I haven't used any of the newer versions of Angular, so I really can't say much more about it. John Hansen also said, oh, okay, so there was a question earlier about server-side rendering with React. John Hansen recommends Gatsby.js. So I had mentioned Next.js. That's what we're using for this project, but John says check out Gatsby. So yeah, I haven't used Gatsby on a project, but I was pretty impressed with it when we checked it out as a potential solution for this particular project. LAR says how to build a C++ website. I have no idea. I've never attempted to build a website in C++. In general, though, if you're going to build a website, you're going to use HTML and CSS. I mean, HTML at the very least, minimum, right? CSS if you want it to look nice. If you want it to do anything, you're going to need JavaScript. Any other language you're using is going to be backend. So you can use whatever you want for the back end, but you definitely need to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript if you're going to do anything with the web. Cardiac Acid says, no air conditioner in your room? Yeah, I mean, there is air conditioning in this building. It's just, my room gets really warm. I think it's because of all my screens generate, like, heat, so other rooms, like other offices in my building, they're generally pretty cool, but I just have a heat source in mine. Boomman says, what do you think about Redux? Is it needed for a small project? No, I think Redux is not necessary for a small project. Usually the point at which I start considering Redux is if I find myself passing props down like through a number of children, or like back up to a number of like parent and grandparent elements. So if I need to pass things like 3 levels down or more, then I'm going to consider Redux or something like Redux. Otherwise, just manage state the way React was intended, right? Just with local like component state. I think you'd be fine like that, and you're gonna, because like Redux just adds all this extra complexity, and it will slow you down for a small project if you don't really need it. If you have a large project, Redux will eventually save you time, but there's a point at which it would actually save you time. So if you haven't reached that point in terms of project complexity, it's less efficient to use Redux. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. Okay, my 5-minute timer is up, but I'm just going to keep going with some questions right now. Oh, okay. Michael Krill says the form control is wrapping the select. Okay, so that's probably why the select is not taking up this full space, because it's inside of another container. All right, cool. I'm glad you noticed that. Ankush says, which language? We're using JavaScript. Michael Creel says, I thought you said it was going to end up being a modal. The form itself won't be a modal, but once you submit the form, a modal will pop up. John Hansen says, we can easily nest grid containers since they're Flexbox. nested true CSS grids have a few gotchas. Okay, cool. So we should be fine nesting it. I mean, it looks a bit messy, but, you know, not that many people are going to be inspecting our code. Man, my eyes look super red right now. I don't know why. I've been so tired. I just can't recover from my trip. I didn't get that much sleep like last week, and I'm still like exhausted all the time. Maybe I'm starting to get sick. Actually, that kind of makes sense. Maybe it's like the early stages of me getting sick. I hope not, but it's definitely possible. Williams says, what programming are you discussing? JavaScript, in particular React. All right, Michael Crow says, you set a width on the items against the viewport, set an absolute value for the container. Okay, that must have been before we did that. So I think that's in fact what we ended up doing. Williams says, how can I become a developer? I know the basics of programming, which I studied in engineering. If you're very new to being a web developer, check out freeCodeCamp.org and start to go through some of the lessons there. They are very helpful, and it will take you through a lot of the basics all the way into some more advanced stuff as you go on, and that should give you a good idea of you know, what you need to know and whether or not you even like working with that kind of thing. Lenovo asks, how was your trip to New York City? It was good. So yeah, I don't know if I said anything about my trip yet, or at least explained that much about it. So last week I actually took 2 trips. First I went to React Rally in Salt Lake City, and then I flew to New York. In particular, I was in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Brooklyn is a section of New York City, and there was a freeCodeCamp top contributors party. So I was honored to be one of the top contributors for 2018. So went there. It was really cool. It was awesome to meet a lot of these people that I had contact with online and I'd never met in person. So that was really cool. And there were a lot of people that were doing things that I didn't even realize that they were working with freeCodeCamp. And after getting to meet them and learning about what they were doing, you know, I thought, wow, this is awesome. You know, I know your work, even though I didn't know you. Yeah, so I mean, some of the people I met, you know, moderated the forum, and some of them were editors for the Medium publication, or worked with a podcast, or worked on like the actual code for freeCodeCamp. So it was cool. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. So we just kind of hung out, ate food and stuff, and the whole thing was live streamed. So you can check that out. The video's available on this YouTube channel. So it was a good, cool experience. And then the rest of the time that I was there, I just decided to walk around New York and see what it was like. So I took, like during the day, I walked all around Brooklyn and just checked out as much as I could. I walked around until my phone died, and then I charged it a bit, and then that night, so this would be Sunday night, I went to Manhattan and walked around Manhattan for hours and hours until my phone was about to die. So that was cool. So I mean, I stopped at a lot of places, got food or coffee or something. I had the best ramen I've ever eaten in my life in Manhattan. It was awesome. That tonkatsu style ramen was so good. Uh, but anyway, yeah, it was cool. It was cool to just see what it's like. Brooklyn and Manhattan are super different. Um, yeah, just so different. So it's kind of cool, like you go to New York, it's not just all the same, not all one city. Like each part is definitely distinct, its own like type of people, stores, like architecture. It's cool. It was a really cool trip, and Salt Lake City was a cool place too. Way different from New York, but also a cool place to be. So. If anybody wants to know more about my trip or anything specific, feel free to ask me in the chat here or at some other time. I'd be happy to talk more about it. Otherwise, I don't want to bore you if you're not interested. Shirada says the code is so blurry. So if your code is blurry, I'm guessing that it might be the connection. So it should be, I'm streaming in 1080p quality. So in 1080p, and I think too in 720, the code shouldn't be blurry, but anything lower than that, it's blurry. So if you're not getting a good picture right now, you can wait and watch the recording, and you may be able to watch in full HD if you have a good network connection, later on. The other thing it could be, if you're watching on a mobile device, it's really hard to watch code on a mobile device, so it doesn't really matter how big I make the code. It's still going to look kind of small. Alexi says, how to master CSS. Just practice. Work with it a lot. So you can watch videos and do courses on it, which is great. But no matter what you do, just practice every day, or as close as you can get to every day. I think that's the key to getting good at really anything. So that's my advice for CSS and for pretty much everything else. Just try to do at least a little bit every day. Kardik says Angular has MVC, so model view controller, which is not in React. Is it important? It depends on what you want to do, right? If your project lends itself better to that kind of architecture, the model view controller, then go with that. Like if not, so I mean it's really, when we're talking about, let's say like Angular versus React versus Vue or Ember or jQuery, whatever else you want to compare it to, right? A lot of times we want to say like, and I get these questions a lot, like which one's the best? Like there's a best, like that's the answer, right? But it's not that clear cut. It usually comes down to what are you trying to accomplish? Like let's pick the tool, right? Asking which is the best between like Angular or whatever you want to ask is kind of like asking what's the best tool, right? Hammer versus screwdriver versus wrench, which is the best? It depends entirely on what you're trying to do, right? If you're trying to hammer a nail, obviously the hammer is the best, all right? But if you try to take a screw and drive it into a piece of wood with a hammer, it's not going to be nearly as effective as if you had a screwdriver. If you have a bolt, right, like you're going to want a wrench. So think of frameworks in coding like that, right? It's not that there's one thing that's better in all cases. It's what is your use case and what's going to be the best thing for you. You want something that's going to do what you need it to do, but not come with all this extra stuff that you don't need so that it's bloated, right? It may take you a lot more time to set something up that has lots of extra stuff that you don't need. Sometimes the best thing is just to pick the most simple solution that fits your use case, even if that solution in terms of total features is way less feature filled than something else, right? You also want to think about like on your team of developers, what do they already know? Right? Learning something new, even if that new thing might be better, is going to take a long time. Is that better thing going to add enough value to the project to make sense in like all that extra time that you're going to need to give your developers to learn it, right? It doesn't always pay off, right? Sometimes it makes more sense to go with the older thing or the thing doesn't have as many features if your developers already know it, if you need to get that thing out quickly, right? Because you get the product out quickly and it works, then you can move on to the next product, right? And make a lot more money, assuming that you can fulfill all your clients' requirements. It doesn't have to be like I'm using the absolute latest cutting edge perfect thing. It's, do I fulfill the requirements of the project, right? And that's what should be your focus should be. So for me, React makes sense for a lot of things. One of the big reasons is I know React, right? It would take me a while to learn something new. But there are some cases where even React is overkill. And I might say, okay, for this project, like, I'm just going to do straight up HTML, CSS. If I need some interactivity, I'll do vanilla JavaScript, maybe even jQuery. Sometimes it needs to get loaded for something else on the page anyway, and in that case, I would just use it, right? So that's where I think we need to look at that question. Sorry for like the rant on that, but you know, I get that question often enough that I think it is kind of worth explaining this. That it's, you know, these frameworks are not, it's not competition, right? They often borrow ideas from each other and build off of each other, and they are created to solve different problems. So I think the tool analogy is pretty good here, right? You just need to find the tool that is meant for your problem, right? And not think that somehow there's one tool that's going to solve everything. Right? And sometimes it doesn't matter if you pick the wrong thing. It'll still work, right? Like, if you pound hard enough, you can get a screw into a board with a hammer. But it's going to take a lot more effort, and it's not going to fit as perfectly, but it's possible, right? So, you know, don't be afraid of, oh, am I going to pick the wrong framework? Just get started. Start working. If it's really the wrong thing for you, you'll notice. And hopefully you'll have time to switch. But even if you don't, you could probably still make it work. Let's see. I lost my place. It scrolled me down automatically. David asks, is React still an on-demand JavaScript library? Yes, definitely. I think I mentioned earlier, I see a ton of jobs that are asking for React experience. So, yeah, so you're good if you know React. If you're gonna learn React, there are jobs out there. Steven says, any plans for using GraphQL? Yeah, we are using GraphQL on this project. So we didn't work with it today, but we will work with it again in the future, and we have worked with it on past streams. Shraddha says, how do I get this code from the start stage? I guess you'd have to look back at some of the earliest commits and then view the repo at that point. And the link to the repo is in the description. Somebody says don't die. I will try not to die. I think that's because I mentioned I think I was getting sick earlier. Shraddha said, is the session over, sir? The coding portion is over. I don't think I'm going to do any more coding today because I'm actually going to leave the office really soon. But I'm still going to do questions. AJ asks, any tips for making a sticky footer? Any way to point me in the direction to the one you use on your current site? So a sticky footer? You mean like... Alright, so I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. Do you mean that you would always be able to see the footer and it would always be visible as you scroll? Or do you mean that the footer would always be at the bottom even if you were on a page that didn't have enough content to push it to the bottom? So I guess if you wanted the footer to always be visible, then I guess you're going to want to set it to something like absolute position, right? Or I'm sorry, a fixed position, right? And you're going to want to set it fixed position, right? Like 100. Oh, actually, Michael Creel has the answer here. So so just check out what he wrote. I'll explain it for those of you who maybe can't see the live chat right now. Basically, you would set it at position fixed, and then you would do, for the value, it would be, you would say top, right, for the positioning, and then you'd use calc. So calc lets you do math inside of CSS, so you would want to say 100 VH, that's viewport height, so that would position it with the top corner down here, so you wouldn't actually be able to see it, but then you would do calc minus the height of your footer, right, so whatever that might be, and that would bump it up by the height of your footer. So then the footer would always be there, always visible as you scroll down. Right? So that's how you would do that if that's what you mean by sticky. Otherwise, if you just always wanted it to be at the bottom, even if you didn't have enough content to push it to the bottom, you would want to put your content in one container, right? Maybe call it main or something, and then make the minimum height of that container be 100 VH minus the height of the footer, and then potentially if you might want to take into account the height of the header as well, depending on what you have the header set at. Modena says hello from Bangladesh. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. Let's see, Louis or Louis, how do you pronounce that in France? Anyway, it says hi from France. How's it going? Thanks for joining us. Michael says, it must have been nice when you introduced yourself on the stream. Hi, I'm Jesse, and most of them got the reference. So yeah, on the if you watch the freeCodeCamp Top Contributor Party live stream, when they got around to me, which was kind of when they were doing introductions, I was almost the last one. I got on the mic and said, hey, hey everyone, it's Jesse from Live Coding with Jesse, which is pretty close to what I say at the beginning of every stream. And a lot of people did laugh. They got the reference, so it was fun. Vamshi says, do you use sass with JSX? You can use sass with React. It's possible. We're not in this particular project, but we have in past projects. If you're talking about actually having sass like in your JSX code, I've never seen that happen. It's usually in a separate file. Michael Creel says, this is earlier I said there's not really one JavaScript library framework that solves all your problems, right? That's always the best solution. And Michael Creel says, except duct tape. Duct tape is always useful in any circumstance. So duct tape is quite useful for many different things. John Hansen says, duct tape works on everything. Is there a new dev platform, ducttape.js? That's a good idea. Somebody better grab that domain, ducttape.io or something. Put up like a placeholder NPM package called duct tape. Mammy, let me know if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but Mammy says, hello, Jesse. I listen because I see now I will not get good at this. I have to see it even with the desktop too small for me, and it saddens me because I want to, legally blind. Oh, no. Um, I'm not sure what I can do. Um, do you think if I made the font even bigger, it would help, or does it not really matter what the font size is? Uh, I mean, I could probably make it a little bit bigger than I have it right now. It needs, I mean, there's definitely an upper limit to where we wouldn't be able to see enough on the screen to really understand anything. But let me know. I can definitely try to make it larger for you. Mom, she says, all right, enough talking, get to work. I'm going to get through all the questions. Alex says hello from Brazil. I'm not sure I saw that earlier. So, hey, Alex. Kardik says, how do I get ideas for a project in React? I'm not creative. If you just check out like app ideas or something like that, like if you Google that, you'll see there are whole lists and websites dedicated to ideas for web projects. So check that out, and you could just pick whatever one you like. Iki says, I did that footer. It's just some flex box. The idea is you set display flex on your container and a min height of 100 VH, then declare flex 1 on the main item. Oh, okay, cool. So evidently Nikki said to set this up for the footer for this site. Thank you, Nikki. That was probably one of the first things that we did. So that was so long ago, I'd forgotten about that. But thanks for that, and thanks for explaining how you did it. Gnas, I don't know if the G is supposed to be silent on that, but it's GNAS. It says, can you compare CSS animation versus JavaScript animation? Yeah, from what I understand, which maybe is limited, if you can do animation in CSS, performance-wise, it's almost always better to do it in CSS versus JavaScript. But JavaScript is going to allow you to do more than you can do with CSS, right? Although there's a lot you can do with CSS, right? You'd be surprised at how much is possible with pure CSS. So, but as a general rule, if you can do something with pure CSS and it's not going to be like ridiculously complicated, and it will be supported in the browsers that you need to support, then you want to try to do it with CSS. Otherwise, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it with JavaScript. A ton of websites use JavaScript for animation, but you might get a slight, performance increase if you can do it with CSS. Alexi says, do you use CSS modules and React components? Are they useful? In general, basically the way you see us using CSS here is pretty much the way that we always do it. So we do some inline CSS, we do CSS and in JavaScript as those objects, and then we also have just regular CSS files that we pull in just by putting it in the head of our page components. Sorry for the yawn. I've been trying to hold them back. So anyway, that's what we do with CSS. I haven't really messed with very much of anything else. I have tried styled components. I don't really have experience using CSS modules though. It's easy, not sure how to pronounce that. Let me know and I'll try to pronounce it correctly next time. Says hi from Nigeria. How's it going? Thanks for watching. Let's see. All right, so Nikki posted a link a GitHub link to a sticky footer demo, and it was held for review. I just saw it and approved it now. So if you scroll back up, it's not too far from the bottom, but you'll see Niki's link. So that might help anybody who's looking to do a sticky footer with Flexbox. JavaScript is here. Hey, JavaScript, how's it going? JavaScript asks, did you see the updates to javascript.af? I have not. I haven't seen it in a while. So, in case you wondering what that is, I own the domain name javascript.af, and some of the live stream viewers have been working on it on the side. So, in particular, Harshit and Niki and JavaScripter have been working on it. So I will let you know more once it's ready. But it's basically going to be a place where you can check out news about the coolest things that are happening in JavaScript, and you'll be able to check out repos and potentially some other stuff. We have some more ideas for it, but anyway, that's what JavaScript AF is. Mammy says, so if you remember, we were talking about font sizes for Mammy, and it says it probably, okay, so a larger font probably wouldn't. What I'm pursuing is to keep learning. It says, I'm retired. I will keep trying, though. I could finally get good with practice. Okay, yeah. Just, I mean, let me know if there's anything I could do, to help. And you could definitely get good with practice. It's just a matter of putting in that time, Eze says, do you see yourself using PHP ever? I do use some PHP when I have to do WordPress plugins, and I've done like some basic file uploaders with PHP before, but mainly I want to stick with JavaScript. PHP is not something I want to pursue further. I'm comfortable with what I know about it right now, and I'm not really interested in learning that much more about it. Not that I don't have anything against PHP, but that's just not the direction I want my learning to go in right now. Oh, okay. Michael reminded me that, so when I say Niki, Niki is Rook in the chat, so they're the same person. So that may have been confusing. Kartik says, how do you remember what syntax to use when coding up a project in JavaScript, considering JavaScript is a confusing language for many people? It's just practice, right? So I think any language is confusing at first. Some maybe more than others, but if you use it all the time and you practice, you're going to remember things. So I think that's really all it is. It's just, you have the practice, it's going to be less confusing. You'll remember more. You'll have to look up less. And when you do look things up, you'll be able to find the answer a lot faster. Because you'll know how to structure the questions. You'll know exactly, you'll have a better idea of where to look for an answer. And you can only get that through using the language practice, Okay. All right, I've got to the end of the chat, and I'm going to wrap things up here. I'm going to leave the office soon. So thank you all so much for watching, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to stream tomorrow or not, so I may see you all next week, probably on Monday. So either way, I hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.